I'd like to think I could explain that better than Mark, but he's hard to beat. So, Rod, I couldn't be more excited about VMForce and what the two of us and our teams are bringing to the table. Mark explained it very well, but we're going to show you what Mark just explained to you. We're going to show you local development in the Spring framework. And then we're going to show you moving those applications into the cloud and then tapping in not only to the Force.com platform, but also things like Chatter and higher level services that we have on our platform.
I think there's a lot of points that Mark and Paul made that we'll be coming back to. So, for example, Paul's point about having a vision is great, but you have to be able to get there. And I think we'll help people understand how we have a roadmap here.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the roadmap right here. We're going to take you through 3 demonstrations today. We're going to start with something really simple. For the developers out there, it's basically a Hello World type application, except this is Hello Cloud because we're in the cloud. Then we're going to take a reference application for the Spring community, which is a real solid application called Spring Travel. And we're going to show you that moving into the cloud and running within the cloud. And then we're going to show you something really special where we're going to add something to Spring to make it even better, or to the Spring Travel application. So with that, let's go over to the IDE, to the SpringSource. Oh, sorry, we're going to the back end. Sorry about that. All right, let's log into the back end, and let's just show you. This is the console on Force.com, where Force.com developers are going, and this is where they're managing their applications. So you can create applications on Force.com, so they're the apps. You can create a data model in there. You can go and you can develop. So there is some coding within Force.com. But you know what? My community kept asking, how do I write code in Java? How do I reference all of those great Java libraries out there? I didn't have an answer until today, until Rod came and partnered with me. And so we have that. We're going to show that to you. And so we have email services on and on. But there's also deploy. Deploying applications is very easy with Force.com. But there's something new here. And it's called VMForce for Java. That is where you manage these applications on VMForce. So let's click through that, and we have a nice welcome message here. There's a dashboard. You can watch all of your applications running in the cloud on VMForce through this console. You can see the list of applications if you click here. We've got a sample application running right now. By the end of this, we're going to have 4 full applications running. The sample one's running right now. You can see when they were created, the status. You can take some actions on them. But you know what? Let's not just watch this console. That's not very interesting. Let's go build our first very simple application. So with that, let's go back to the IDE. And this is really where your comfort zone comes in. I was in my happy place there with Force.com. But now we're in the IDE with SpringSource, and this is what all the Spring developers know and love. So Rod, maybe you can introduce this to the crowd here.
Thanks, Parker. So this is SpringSource Tool Suite, which we often refer to as STS. This is a free development environment, or IDE, from the SpringSource division of VMware, and it's the best place to develop Spring applications. So what I'm going to do is demonstrate just how easy it is to create and deploy cloud applications to VMForce. So you're able to use the familiar skill set that millions of developers already have, the familiar Java and Spring skill set. So, for example, if we wanted to create a new application using SpringSource Tool Suite, this is extremely easy. So there's a number of wizards in SpringSource Tool Suite. So, for example, we can simply create a new application using what we call Spring template wizards. So here there's a choice of templates that we can choose. And what we'll be showing today is a Spring MVC web project. So the Spring MVC Model View Controller web framework uses a very familiar architectural pattern for building web applications, familiar to the Spring developer base.
So there are 2 million developers. This is just obvious to them. They come in and like, oh yeah, it's a Spring MVC, ready to go.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So what we're going to do is, initially we were actually going to run the wizard, create an application and deploy it. But in the interest of time, we're going to work with an application that we previously created with the wizard and have already done a little customization to. Okay. So what we have here is a regular Spring layout of a new project. So there is nothing here that is cloud specific. There's nothing here that is VMForce specific. We have pretty much a vanilla Spring MVC application. Probably worth at this point taking a step back and reflecting on why developers choose Spring. Developers choose Spring because it simplifies their applications. We heard a lot from Mark and Paul about simplifying IT. There is an immense problem in terms of how people go about traditionally developing and then deploying applications to, the kind of quagmire of servers that they have to provision in the enterprise.
Yeah, I think we share that similar value because Force.com is all about simplicity and it just shouldn't be that hard.
So what we've done in Spring is we've dramatically simplified the development and programming model part of the equation. So what we've done is provided some very powerful and portable abstractions that simplify application code and decouple it from its environment. So for example, this decouples the business logic in the applications from particular Java enterprise servers that organizations deploy their applications to. These powerful abstractions in Spring with the coming of cloud are more important than ever before because it means we can abstract away from the fact that you're deploying on an ugly, traditional old enterprise Java server or that you're deploying in a new cloud world of simpler IT. So, that portability is a point that I think is very important. It's important to the values behind VMForce, portability and openness. And for me personally, I'm excited about it because it's a continuation of the Spring story. Okay, so back to our Spring MVC application. We have here an application that uses a familiar skill set. An MVC application has a concept called a controller. So a controller is the Java class that will handle incoming requests. So by default, the SpringSource tool suite wizard creates something called welcome controller. This allows us to invoke some Java code that can perform custom operations. That Java code, in turn, produces results that are typically displayed in HTML form using something called a JSP, Java Server Page. So here you can see the simple default JSP that just says, congratulations, you're running Spring. So what we're going to do now is get into the world of real data. So this application and this welcome page gets a lot more interesting when we actually access some data.
Yeah.
So for example, if we had somewhere to store data, somewhere perhaps we already had valuable enterprise data, we could display it. Do you know anywhere?
Rod, I have just that place for you. It's called Force.com, in case you hadn't heard about it. So with VMForce, it's amazing because as you're looking at the screen here, you see some Java objects there. Those Java objects are in the Spring framework. But what those are mappings to objects in the Force.com database. Our customers are already tracking over 1 billion contacts in our system. We have a very large database. That's what we're very, very good at. And yet those objects are now, that data is now available in Spring with this contact, case. And it doesn't have to be the standard data model in Salesforce.com. Of course, you could create anything. But we've already provided you a starting point because that's the ease of use of the Spring framework. We want to make it really, really easy to connect those two platforms with VMForce.
Absolutely. So what we have here is what's known as a POJO, plain old Java object. This is a Java object that contains some of the contact information that you will find in Force.com. Applications that are deployed to VMForce can define their own data, and they can also leverage the valuable existing data that folk already have in Force.com. So what we've done here is use the Java Persistence API, JPA, mapping technology to map our POJOs to persistent data. And we've got a layer of Spring and Salesforce.com goodness that actually bridges that gap and makes it largely transparent. There is nothing in this controller. There is nothing in that contacts object that is unique or proprietary. It is using very familiar skills, open source, open standards.
So we're going to write some open code to connect those two platforms and grab some contacts from the Force.com database.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So what we have here is a Spring MVC controller. It uses a technology provided in Spring called dependency injection that enables it to be very, very easily configured. We have something called an entity manager, which is a Java Persistence API concept that enables us to query for persistent objects.
And that's a standard and open API.
That is a standard API. There is nothing here that is going to be unfamiliar to a Spring or Enterprise Java developer. So what we're doing is actually creating a query. And this query is going to query for our contacts. So what we're going to do is make this application more interesting by actually querying for data that's already in force.com.
So it's as simple as that. Any Java developer who knows Spring could talk to the force.com database without learning anything new.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And I mean, I'm personally excited about this because for my developer audience, you know, this makes them heroes. This makes them more valuable to their organizations because they can now get at this additional valuable enterprise data.
Well, let's run this application. So how do we run this application, or how would a typical Spring developer run it?
Okay, so typically what we have in the SpringSource tool suite, or generally when you're developing Spring applications, is you deploy to a server. A server is likely to be something that's sitting on your desktop or perhaps also sitting outside and behind your enterprise firewall. In SpringSource tool suite, there are a choice of servers. So, for example, various legacy servers.
So you could go to IBM and buy some servers.
Absolutely.
And put them inside your firewall and get some people to run those and plug them in and maybe get an extra server to back it up, and you could do all that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can start the process now. We'll get the purchase order, then we can start the installation and download. But what we've done is, in the context of VMForce, we've created a new type of server. And it's within this same very familiar Eclipse SpringSource tool suite abstraction. So when we configure this server, we need to log into the VMForce cloud with our credentials. Actually, we're using your credentials.
Yep.
I'll make a note of your password.
Right.
And now we have the VMForce cloud that appears just like any other server.
Yeah.
Deploying to that cloud simply involves dragging and dropping. So we can literally drag that application that we created, drop it onto the VMForce cloud, and start it.
So that's amazing. So what just happened is you took that code that you wrote locally on this machine, and we just moved it into the cloud, and now it's tapping into the entire force.com platform with everything that it provides: the redundancy, reliability, disaster recovery, all the manageability of that you don't have to worry about, and you just did that with a drag and drop.
Absolutely. You preserve the values of productivity that you get with Spring in our development environment. Now you've got a secure, robust, elastic place to deploy.
So let's move over to the console again, and let's look at that application. Now we're looking at the console. We have that sample application. If we refresh, you're going to see the new application, Hello Cloud, is now running. So let's take a look at that application. Okay, we're going to click through in the console. And obviously, you can view all the details of that specific application. You can manage it here with this console. But we're going to click through, and we're going to show you that this is live. So, in fact, we did have a bug there. It looks like things are not working on that demo. But we do real demos here at Salesforce.com and with VMware. And there it is working. So there is a proof in the pudding that this is real code running in the cloud. These are contacts that are coming from a force.com database, being pulled in the cloud into that Java code that's also running in the cloud, being displayed in a web page that we're looking at here. And this could be your contact data as a force.com customer or as a VMForce customer.
Absolutely. So this, not only did we make that deployment experience very familiar and simple, we used a familiar skill set, we got away from that nightmare of server provisioning, and we showed we could access existing valuable data.
Great, fantastic. All right, simple demo. Let's move on and look at a real application. So let's go back to the IDE. And there's an application called Spring Travel. And I think every developer, I've just learned about it in the past month, but I think every developer that's a Spring developer knows it. It's a reference application that's a real solid application, end-to-end, that is how you learn the Spring platform. So Rod, why don't you walk us through this application, and then let's get it running and take a look.
Spring Travel is one of the samples we ship with Spring. One of the reasons it's interesting is it not only uses the core Spring framework, it also uses some of the related projects that truly make Spring a platform. So for example, we use Spring Security that can make it really easy to have fine-grained control over your application with minimal changes to your Java code. It uses Spring Webflow, which is a powerful technology for building conversational wizard-style applications. So as with most applications, it has its data model, or as we like to call it, domain model. The domain in this case is hotel booking. This application is an in-house application for creating corporate travel bookings and potentially managing the corporate travel policy. So monitoring where folk are booking, whether they're adhering to the expense policy. So we have a bunch of objects that represent the concepts in this domain. Like, for example, a booking that you will see when we run the web interface. Again, we've mapped this using JPA, and we've had to make some very modest changes to Spring configuration to take this existing application and target it to VMForce.
And that's the beauty of the Spring Framework and VMForce is that it is an open platform, and so you can very easily plug it into the Force.com backend.
Absolutely. So now we're going to go through the familiar drag and drop experience to deploy this application to the VMForce cloud. But this is an application that defines its own custom data, causes that data to be held and maintained in VMForce.com, and shows how easy it is to modify a real existing enterprise application. So
let's go over to the console again and take a look at that application. We have our first two applications that we're looking at before. We're going to go and refresh the console. And the new Spring Travel application is right there. So let's click on that application, take a look at it. Again, all the attributes of that application are here, but let's click through the endpoint and let's actually look at this application running. So this application is a full application running in the cloud on VMForce. And so what is this? This is an internal employee hotel booking service.
Yes, it enables us to search for locations, find hotels, potentially make bookings.
Yeah, so for example, I live close by, but let's say that I actually wanted to stay here for the night. I could book a hotel room here at the Palace Hotel. So let's go ahead and do that booking. And so this Java code is running. It's presenting these screens to you. It's letting you choose from various options, and then it's storing it in the Force.com database. Now, I'm going to ask for an ocean view here at the Palace Hotel. I don't know if that's possible, but we ask a lot here. And the minibar will be great, thank you. And a fake credit card number, even better. And we're going to move on, and we're going to proceed. Now, what just happened is that booking was then saved into the Force.com platform.
Yeah, a moment ago we saw the Java code behind that booking object, and that's exactly the data that's now persisted in Force.com.
Fantastic. All right, so let's make this a little bit more interesting. Let's go back to the IDE, and I want to add something else to that application. So that's the reference application. Now we're going to add a little bit more Force.com goodness to this application, because we want to take all those Java developers that know this Spring application, the Spring Travel, we want to take them to Cloud 2. And so we're going to add a little Cloud 2 in here.
Okay, this is a great example of how Spring enables developers very easily using a familiar skill set to take advantage of capabilities in Force.com. So what we're doing here is we're revisiting the controller, and we're going to make some simple changes to this controller.
So there's a booking service. I think that was in the application.
The booking service is what goes and manages that persistent data.
Okay, and now we have something new here. It looks like it's called Chatter Service, which I've heard of Chatter. It's fantastic. So Spring is now consuming a new service, and it happens to be from Force.com.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There is Java code that is being exposed that surfaces that Force.com functionality. And one of the many things that Spring is very good at is making it really easy to get hold of services, to get hold of other objects that you need. So in this case, we need to get hold of the Chatter service to enhance our controller. we're using that add auto wired annotation that drives Spring dependency injection. So Spring auto-magically goes, finds the chatter service and says, hey, you asked for a chatter service, here it is. Don't worry about the mechanics of how I found it. Here it is, go use it.
Great, all right. Well, let's get this application going, Jesper, and I want to see it actually running, and I want to see how all these developers, 2 million developers, can now consume not only the power of that force.com database, but also all these higher level services that, like Chatter, to bring them into Cloud 2. So again, we're going to do the same process. We're going to drag this application over into the cloud. So that dragging action, you didn't see it, but the code just moved into the cloud. Now let's go over to the console again, take a look at that application. So we had Spring Travel there. We're going to refresh again. We've got the fourth application running, which is Chatter Travel. Same base application, but we've added some new things to it. So let's go to that endpoint and take a look at what we added. Okay, looks very, very similar. You can see the Spring Travel and the bed. But up in the top right, we've got a new link called Analytics. Now, many of you who know the Force.com platform, it has pre-built analytics. You don't have to do anything. You get analytics as part of the platform. Very, very powerful analytics. And now all of these Java developers can tap into that without writing really any code at all. They're pulling those components into that SpringSource framework. And so in this example, you can imagine someone running procurement at your company wants to know, are people booking ocean view rooms right and left and charging a ton of money at the company? I know Graham Smith, our CFO, is very concerned by things like that, and so we want to keep an eye on it and make sure we keep T&E really low. So you got the pre-built analytics. You don't have to worry about it. We have it for you.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, normally, most Java developers are likely to be storing their data in a relational database. You have to go build that stuff, whereas this is real business value that you get for free.
Yeah, and there's so much else I want to show you. For example, we have a full-text search engine built into the platform. You get that as part of it. But the one thing I wanted to show you, there's a little picture there.
It's the one that's a bit Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah, happens to be me. Yeah, last night there was a lot of teasing. I had very little control over that picture. But let's click through. That picture, looks familiar to those of you who know Facebook. This is that's me looking very, very serious. So this looks a lot like Facebook, and this is what we refer to as Chatter, and we really see it as transforming where we're going, and we're really going where Mark was showing to Cloud 2, which is about real time. It's about collaboration. It's about mobile. So I've got my picture here. Now let's go and just enter a little message here. This is a status update. And so I'm broadcasting. This is internal to my company. I'm broadcasting out to people who might be interested that I'm going to New York City for a conference. And I want a little advice on what hotel I should stay at that would be approved by our CFO. And so I typed in that message. Now, who's going to see that message? I have followers here. They're people that are interested in me. I don't know why, but they're following me. And they want to know what's going on. And so Ra is there, and he's following me. I'm also following people. Not only am I following people and interested in other people and other colleagues in my company, I'm also following data. I'm following this flight that I'm going to be on. I want to know if it gets delayed. I'm following documents, this expense policy. I want to know when the expense policy gets updated. That's what Chatter is all about. And now this is available to all those Java developers as part of VMForce. So I broadcast that message. Now, where do these messages appear? Let's go back to the home page and go back and let's look. There is a whole feed on my home page. So let's open up that where you say Show Chatter. And you can see there's the goofy picture of me saying I'm heading out to New York City. Now you can see just below that the data has been quote-unquote tweeting or chattering. The data is talking as well. So I booked that hotel room at the Palace Hotel. The travel policy has been updated. It's talking. And so you're getting connected to your whole company, and that's what we're adding into VMForce. Now, let's go back up. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I meant up the screen. Yeah. So not the IDE. So we're going to go, one of the amazing things about Cloud 2 that I love is that Cloud 2 should be available everywhere. And you saw some of those stats that Mark showed you. Laptops and desktops are starting to give way to those mobile phones that all of you have that run those applications, or even the iPad. I raised my hand that I have one. I did make the mistake of ordering the 3GS. I don't have it yet. It's coming. But this same application is available on an iPad. And so here we have it running on the iPad. We've got Rod here.
I actually do have an iPad, so
this
is realistic.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk later. I could trade with you. So here's Rod, and he sees my message. He's following me, okay? And he sees my message that I'm heading out to New York City, and so Rod's going to help me out, and he can go and comment on my post, and he can put in a little message there saying, I've got some advice for you.
Okay.
Okay. And so let's see, what did you say there? You said I should stay at the Hudson. Great bar, and I'm not sure what you think of me, but but you're probably right. Nice bar would be nice when I head over to New York. So he's going to post that, and then I get it. And that could be anyone in your company. Now, when that happens, you'll look on the left-hand side, because this is on all devices, it's real time. That message gets updated back to me in real time. I saw that right away, okay? Because I get that help. And this happens in my company today. We have Chatter turned on. Now it's available to all these Java developers. I couldn't be more excited with what's possible now with VMForce. With the two companies together, this is just the beginning. And Rod, maybe you can say a few words about your community and what you think.
Thanks, Parker. One of the reasons I'm very excited about this is because we do take portability very seriously with Spring. And really, we're on a mission to ensure that if you want to go to cloud as a developer, Spring is the way to do that. Spring will give you the best experience. And so when I look at the fact that you can leverage your familiar Spring skill set and you can get the extremely compelling experience of VMForce and Force.com, that is really exciting. And I think the next few months are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So thank you all. I hope you got a better feel for what we're talking about. And with that, we'll hand it back to our MCs. Thank you.